Hello, I'm Tan the Tan BOTC channel. Let's talk about the voice actors of Skyrim and the cities in Skyrim. So I think the easiest will be the cities first. So when I was playing Skyrim, talking about some stuff about like its cities with one of my friends were like, besides, there's actually a theory out there that Skyrim might be a post-apocalyptic fantasy setting. I don't know about that. I like the idea, sounds cool, but it might be just a more rural or just like less lived in, less populated area. Probably kind of like uh how places like Norway started out and such way back like medieval ages or crap, whatever the frick. Um sorry. Uh but like there's definitely like places like think of little towns where there's less people in them, and I'm not talking like hundreds of people, probably even less than that. And that was spread out through different parts. The cities may feel small in scale, but it kind of works. And then for me, I actually think bigger cities tend to be more forgettable. They're cool on the outside and they're quite a spectacle to behold as they're just so massive and feel so like intimidating in a way. But I tend to like take Oblivion for example, how there's even like The Witcher 3, Night City and Cyberpunk and stuff. Um but like the cities can look pretty cool and big and feel like actual cities, but then a lot of the characters kind of drown in that bigness, if that's a word. um, and you tend to forget them easily. Where I tend to it's kind of like a neighborhood, like knowing your neighbors and stuff. Uh, you kind of tend to remember them better when you're like next door and all that crap. Much better in like the setting that Skyrim has for these cities. Just feels more like that kind of setup. And I kind of like it better because I'm able to remember the characters better, a lot of their names about them and such. Where because there's so many people in a city, I tend to forget them, or there's like more faceless NPCs and such because of it. And they don't all have like a purpose or a point or meaningful dialogue and such. To like, that's definitely in Skyrim too, but to a lesser degree, ironically speaking. But yeah, I find the cities just like because they're smaller and more condensed, they actually feel more alive, and I get to know the people more there and that setting. They're just really cool looking cities too. They're very well crafted. You can tell somebody put a lot of passion and love into the design of them and such. They're not super confusing like Vivek. I love Vivek, but I just think it's a freaking confusing ass city to freaking navigate. But yeah, I even get that problem with the Oblivion cities. They just kind of blend together. A lot of the houses look very similar to one another too in their designs, with very slight differences here and there. And that can also be said once again for Elder Scrolls, but it at least has a little bit more variety and stands out in a much more interesting way. And then, as well as the layout, it's almost like they turned a really well designed Modern Warfare map into a city that you can live in. Because you know how people talk about the uh, the left path, right path, and then middle path. Kind of feels like that a little bit, but I wouldn't say exactly like that. But yeah, it's well designed and lived in, feels real, interesting, and I can remember the characters' names and stuff. It's also the problem I have with like the Mages and Fighters Guild in like both Morrowind and Oblivion, because they throw so many different guild halls at you and so many characters within each guild hall. It's harder to remember or have the characters stick with you unless you played them a million times. And I've played Oblivion plenty, and I still don't remember half of, if not more than half, the characters in both those guilds. But I remember the Thieves Guild characters, and I remember the Dark Brotherhood, same with Skyrim, because they had more focus. I don't think that the mages, there's definitely flaws in the Mages Guild of Skyrim, but at least I remember a lot of the characters, even the ones that don't really play a part in the story of the Mages Guild or the Thieves Guild and such. I at least remember their names and stuff and what they're about. The Thieves Guild side members might be a little bit more forgettable, but still, I remember Kazargo. I remember the frickin' elf chick. Even the guys that are outside of the frickin' city that are in the inn instead. Then there's Osman. Frickin' okay, some of them are a little forgettable name wise, but they're not forgettable character wise. And they do tend to stick with me more. And then you had also the Mages Guild just actually has you use magic, where the only time I think you're kind of forced to use magic for a puzzle is this really dumbass puzzle where you have to open this staircase. And I hate it. I never liked the Mages Guild, and frickin' Oblivion, it drags too much. And while the reward at the end is kind of worth it, it's just what a frickin' forgettable kind of tedious mess. And I know having frick, I forget his name now too, and he's like really important in like Arena and such, or is it Daggerfall? King Marco or something. I'm forgetting the name, but you understand what I'm trying to say. It just isn't very memorable. And then we move on to the voice acting. Now, when you see voice acting in Skyrim, I gotta defend the voice acting of the characters in there because of the lack of like animations and proper movements for the characters. I think the voice actors really fit. Take for example, if you had a voice actor that was trying a little too hard, like they were sobbing or they were angry and yelling at you, or they were doing like they were really acting their heart out. Like if you took a performance from The Last of Us or the God of War reboot game and you put one of those performances to one of those NPCs, it just wouldn't work the same. Uh, it would look too jarring with a character that's less animated. So I think the voice acting serve a good purpose enough, and I love those voice actors. People have crapped on them, saying, "Oh, there's only 5 or 6 of them in the whole game." I love them, and some of them technically do different voices. Like the guy who does Nazim and a ton of other NPCs with that same voice, he actually voices frickin' Mayik as well, and that's a completely different voice. But they're very cool voices. They're very memorable, iconic. I just love them, and they're funny even. I love hearing that freaking Nordic accent. Let me guess, someone stole your sweet roll. I love that voice. It's freaking fun. I love those voices. But yeah, I think they work properly for that setting and for the way those characters are animated and stuff, as well as the way the story is meant to play out and such. I think it works. It really does. But yeah, I think that's about everything I have to say. Um, and I hope you have an awesome day. Also, Alduin, Gold Alduin's on the side here. But I will see you next time, and thank you for watching if you did. That's about it. See ya. And don't forget to tell Jimmy's mom I said, you know what, never mind. It's not even worth it this time.